You know, you look at the fundamentals in Russia and they're very bad. The demography is very depressing for the Russians. It's not that it's only that male life expectancy still hovers around 60, which for a country of Russia's level of development is bad. It's male mortality rates for young men between 18 and 30 are worse than they are in Haiti, and they're comparable with those in sub-Saharan Africa. That is a shocking statistic. So young men are dying at very rapid rates, very young. You look at that, that's bad. The infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, they haven't replenished it. They're not dealing with it. That's very bad. Growth rates, they're going to have negative growth rates this year. They have been adversely affected by even the mild sanctions that we've imposed on them. So you look at all of that and you say, this is bad. And, you know, we've both been national intelligence officers, as you said. Part of what we both did is you sit there and you try and estimate what's Russia going to look like in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, and you always sit there and everything looks terrible. But what we know from Russian history and from, you know, the history of the last 22 years, whatever, is that you cannot only look at that data, because we know that Russia always gets up from its knees, that the Russian people and society has an amazing ability to survive you know, wars, famines, you know, economic decline, and rise up again and continue. So I think we shouldn't underestimate that. And so I think that in 10 years' time, I don't think Russia will have modernized. I mean, Fiona's quite right. They've made the decision not to. It would be politically much too destabilizing for them to modernize, because it would, you know, then we're back in the old Soviet system, because then you would have many more of these creative younger people coming in, the ones who are now in Paris or the United States or, you know, some other European country. And those people would demand political change, and they demand political accountability. They would want a more open political system. So I don't think that they will move ahead, and they won't create the institutions of a modern state. Russia will still be run by all of these informal mechanisms in a very opaque way. I mean, even in the Soviet times, you had a Politburo. You had some, you did have institutions, and you did have a decision-making processes. As far as we know, there's really one man that makes most of these decisions, and there are a few people around him whom he talks to. We don't really know whom he listens to. So this is by way of saying that if you look at those fundamentals, it doesn't look good. But Russia has always managed to be a country that's been able to exercise quite a lot of power in terms of foreign policy, certainly dominate its neighbors, even when it's been economically weak. So I would say in 10 years' time, you know, don't underestimate Russia, even if it's the economic fundamentals look bad. It will still, it's much more powerful than its neighbors. Its military is much more powerful than its neighbors. And that's where we're going to see most of the activism. And then we're already seeing Russia coming back in the Middle East, as we've said about Iraq and some of those other countries. So slowly, I think we'll see a restoration of Russian influence in parts of the world where it hasn't been since the Soviet collapse. So I think it's, I would not rush to say that it's going to decline, although, as Fiona says, it's losing and will lose, I think, at an accelerating rate, some of the brightest, you know, the best and the brightest of its younger people.